So it's great to have Claire with us again. Give her a round of applause. Thank you. Yeah, and I thought I'd just pray for Claire before she speaks with us. Yeah, so Lord, we thank you so much for Claire. We thank you for the work that she does with her team, Lord. I just pray that you'll be with her this morning, give her the words to say, and yeah, just share with us all, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. It's very nice to be back here with you, even though it's a horrible day out there. One of the things that I really love about church is the announcements, the notices. So I enjoyed that potentially I'm having a job interview in a couple of weeks. It's news to me, but if the Lord wills. My favourite one is when my wedding was announced and it was not going to be my wedding. It's a girl called Heather who didn't think it was very funny, but I really did. Humour, eh? So my journey with Fishponds began all the way back in 2002, and looking around, there aren't a lot of you that were here in 2002, but I came here as a student at UE. I know I don't look old enough for that to be the right timeline, but it is. So back in 2002, this became my home church, and it became a church that I got very involved in. My friend Sarah, who was a student at the same time, she and I helped with a lot of the youth work. Eventually, I did a internship here as a youth worker while I was doing my master's at Bristol Bible College, I think it was. So yeah, Fishponds has very much been a part of my journey, and as Adam said earlier, my sending church, the church that I've come from. So it's really nice to be back here with you today, even though my hands are freezing. So I am a missionary, and I have the privilege of working in the Caribbean. Oh, suffering for Jesus, I know. But there is some suffering. I'll come to that later. And the way that I came to be on the mission field is kind of similar to what Jordan shared earlier. I was just available for those dates in the beginning. And so I was in a really bad mood, and I love that this is part of my testimony. I would, like, if I was going to write a testimony that I could, present as a wonderful spiritual being, this would not be part of it. But God is really funny and works through very ordinary people like me. So I wanted to go on a beach holiday. When I graduated university, a lot of my friends got married, good Christians, they all got married. And I didn't have anyone to go on a beach holiday with. Oh, so sad, I know. I had friends, but not to go on holiday with. And I remember going through my recycling, and I found, because I was, a good person, and I found this leaflet for a mission organization, and I sort of, where do they go? In a real sense of it's not fair, I want to go on a beach holiday. I opened up that leaflet, and the first page was this amazing sunset across the ocean in Sosua Bay, palm trees, really create this beautiful image in your mind. And I thought, oh yeah, I like mission. I could get involved with that. And so I signed up. I was free for those dates. Why not? Off I went. So I signed up to this trip, had an incredible 2 weeks. Like, everything we were doing felt so purposeful, just so emotional, so wonderful, so fulfilling, all of the good things. And we were building brick homes in this village called Esperanza, which means hope. And the homes that we were building, they were really basic, but we were taking families who were living in these dirt floor tin shacks. So there was this whole community of 1,000 people living in these homes that, they were touching each other. There were bits of corrugated tin, like I said, dirt floors. They had bin bags that they were trying to use to fill some of the gaps in the walls. Really not good living conditions. And there was no running water in the community. There was no electricity most of the time for the community. There were no toilets for the community. This was a real, I think we'd call it a slum. This was not a good place for people to be living. But as we built homes, we'd pull down the shack, and the family had this brick home with brick walls and a cement floor and a bit more security and running water and a little bit more access to electricity, and more importantly than all of that, a toilet. You can't have 1,000 people living with no sanitation. It's not good. So that's what we were doing. And as I said, I loved it. And then the 2 weeks was over, and I came back, and I remember going to my house group that week, and Claire Ball was in my house group, and Gav and Darren Smith, and there was a group of us. And at the end of our Bible study, as we always did, we would pray, share prayer requests. And my prayer request was pretty simple. It was such a silly thing to pray. I asked them to pray that God would make it obvious what I was supposed to do as a result of this 2-week experience. Seems harmless enough, right? The next morning, I got a phone call from the mission organization that I'd gone away with, asking me to come to an interview to move to the Dominican Republic and lead their mission teams. And that's not what I was expecting. I was expecting maybe I'd start sponsoring a child for school, because that's a big commitment, right? I didn't want to jump into that. And so I said to the man on the phone, who called you? Who reached out to you this morning? And he said, why would you say that? And I explained I'd shared this prayer request the day before, so obviously someone needed telling off, because you're not allowed to break house group confidentiality, and whoever it was needed to, And he said to me, I'll never forget his words, where do you not believe that God answers prayer? And unfortunately, but amusingly, my response was, oh, I do, but not like that. So anyway, this opportunity was presented to me, and I didn't just agree to go and to move to the Dominican, because, God has to work a bit harder on me than that. I went on another trip, had a very different experience, but obviously, in the end, ended up moving to the Dominican for what I thought was 8 months. I made an 8-month commitment in 2010. Yeah. Sometimes not knowing the future is very good. I would not have gone if I'd had any idea that I'd still be living there now. And I'm very grateful that I am living there now. So over the years, my job there, my role has changed a lot. And the first few years, I can definitely look back on and see them as kind of a training process. First of all, I didn't speak Spanish, so learning that took some time. And just learning how things work. Like, it's such a different culture. There's a lot I could say about that, but I won't. So it took a long time to learn things and to become really useful in my eyes anyway, but those years were definitely not wasted. So over time, I joined an organization, as Adam said, called Go Mad, which doesn't just mean go crazy, although there are definitely days when we do. It stands for Go Make a Difference. And so in 2018, I opened a UK branch of that, but the charity in the Dominican was already running. And what our heart is to come alongside local leaders in the communities that we're working in and to learn from them what are the barriers to kids having access to education. What are the reasons that people stop going to school, and what are the reasons that adults are not employable? And then we try and tackle those reasons, get rid of all of those barriers, and create more sustainable futures, which the people can then take for themselves. So in every village, we're in 7 communities now. And in every village, the reasons are different and the barriers are different. But up in Esperanza, where we were building those brick homes, the barriers back then were pretty straightforward. Number one was the kids didn't have a birth certificate, so they couldn't go to school past grade 8. And those of you that were here back quite a few years ago now will remember me saying, £35, I can get them a birth certificate and it will transform their whole life. It will change their whole future. They can go to school, like really simple things. And a whole load of you gave me £35 and a whole load of futures were transformed. That was fantastic. But then we realized they couldn't go to secondary school because they couldn't afford to get there. So there were 2 obstacles. And so back then, the village school had only been built in 2008, so we only had a few kids that were ready to go to high school. No one in their whole village had ever been to secondary school. I've been Americanized, I just caught myself, high school. No one had ever been to secondary school in this whole community. And so we started out with the first year group of graduates that could go, and I think there were 4 of them. So we put them on the back of motorbike taxis and off they went to school. Well, then the next year there were more, and the next year there were more, and so eventually we ended up with a school bus that's absolutely crammed full, some would say overfull, and they'd be right, with students getting to secondary school. And that's just phenomenal to see, going from no one in secondary school to like 67 kids from one village all going. Well, then we ended up with another problem, which is a fantastic problem. They want to go to university. So now we have a university sponsorship program, and this year, it's mostly sponsored through our Canadian branch, but this year we've got 95 students in university from the villages that we work in, which is amazing, yes. So for people that literally had no access to education, to now having university students and even some graduates really is just so incredibly encouraging. And it feels like we're winning. Like we've got all kinds of other programs too. We've got adult education programs, preschools, all kinds of different things that we're doing to try and improve the opportunities for the communities that we serve in. We have 48 employees on our payroll, which is just crazy. We're a small organization, so to be able to do all of these things is nothing short of a miracle from God. And to be one of the two people in charge of it is just terrifying. How do I know how to do these things? I don't. Equip the called. So we have all of these great things happening, all of these success stories. There's a whole load of celebrations that I've been able to go to over the years. Weddings, baptisms, parties, baby showers. They love a baby shower. In Spanish, baby shower is baby shower. It's great. Nice, easy one to learn. I'm sure you can all say that now, baby shower. But it's not all the fun side. There's a lot of really challenging things about working in a developing country. And so not that I want to bring the mood down, but this year I thought it was time to share some of those more challenging things that happen as well. Seeing people dying who really don't need to be dying from things that we just have the resources to be able to save those lives, that is horrible and really hard to come to terms with. There is a couple living in Esperanza who had a beautiful baby girl. She was 2 months old, and she died. And she died in the hospital, and they couldn't afford to pay the hospital bill to bring her body home to have a funeral. And seeing them in that situation was just one of those heartbreaking moments that would never happen here. You know, those moments of this world is unjust in so many different ways. Watching teenagers, well, not watching them literally once, that was bad enough. Teenagers dying in motorbike accidents because they don't have helmets and they drive like crazy people. Teenagers shouldn't be dying in motorbike accidents. That's just awful, and it happens time and time and time again. It's crazy. But probably the hardest experience that I've had was being involved with a family who was a single mum, and she had 3 children, and her daughter at 18 months old, so a year and a half, weighed 10 pounds. And she was so incredibly malnourished, and I'd been doing everything I could. I'd been taking food for her, food for the other 2 daughters, formula for the baby, special clean vitamin water for making the formula with. And after months of doing this and tracking the baby's weight, and she was still getting smaller and smaller, trying to get neighbors involved, nothing was working. I was there one day and the child was screaming in hunger. Now, I'm not a mum, but you know that sound when you hear it. And saying to her, your child needs feeding. And she looked as if that was a complete surprise and took the baby bottle that had been used, and she washed it in the mop bucket, where the mop was, and the bucket was all dirty water from cleaning the floor, and you can't drip the tap water there anyway. And in that moment, I knew this baby was going to die. This mum had no other resources. No one else could help her. It just wasn't going to work. So I went to Children's Services, which maybe I should have done it, yeah? But I went to Children's Services and explained the situation, and they said that it would all be handled and, you know, the children would be looked after. Well, I was in the village a couple of weeks later when an armed police truck turned up with 20 gun-carrying, camouflage-wearing police officers who went to the house, took the children and left. No one explained to the mother what was happening. No one said anything to her. They literally stormed her house, took her children and left. And that was the last she ever knew about her children. She thinks I have them, and I definitely don't. But moments like that and lives like that, when you can't fix the problem, you can't solve that child's situation, you can't just take someone else's children yourself. Those are really hard moments. And that is some of the reality. I have lots of stories, but now's not the time for all of them. The reality of working in a developing country is not always easy and fun, even though there are palm trees and sunsets and beautiful beaches. There really are. And so that kind of led to me, I've been thinking for a while about what I want to share this morning. And normally when I come back, I share all of the success and the good stories, and we all go out feeling yay. And I hope you still do. But there is a reality to it. And so that's what I want to talk about today, is the reality that we're all in, because we're all on that same journey, whether it's here in Bristol or whether it's somewhere else in the country or somewhere else in the world. We're all going through our own journey. And so the verses that really I'm going to talk about today are from Hebrews 11 and Hebrews 12. And Hebrews chapter 11, if you're familiar with it, it's the faith chapter. So there's all of these stories of the heroes of the faith, the people that we learnt about when we were at Sunday school. You know, all of these amazing, faithful people who didn't know the end of their story while they were in it. And what's a real privilege for us at our point in history is we can read the Bible, and we know when we read the story of Noah that there was a flood, and Noah was the hero, right? Noah didn't know that when God told him to build an ark. He's like, well, it's dry and sunny, and it's never flooded, so what is God talking about? And I'm sure he was ridiculed by the people around him, but he put his faith into practice, and he was obedient, and he built the ark, and it saved him. But he didn't know that at the time. When we read the story of Abraham and Isaac, like Abraham loved his son, and he had him tied up on an altar ready to sacrifice him. He didn't know that God was about to provide a lamb. He was about to kill his son because God was telling him to. Like, that's faith in action, kind of crazy faith in action. I don't think that will happen to us today. But these people didn't know that at the time. So all of these stories happen in Hebrews 11. And then we get to Hebrews 12, verse 1, which says, therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. And I find those words to be both really encouraging and also really challenging. Really encouraging and really challenging. It's encouraging that so many people have gone before us, and that as we look around this room today, there are people that we see as heroes of the faith in our lives, people whose stories we know, and we know how their faith has made a difference and impacted their circumstances. It's encouraging, but it's also incredibly challenging, isn't it? To endure, to run that race. And the word in Greek that's used as race here can also be used as fight. To endure in that fight, to keep going in that battle, in that struggle that you're in. To endure, to dig deep, to not give up. And there's some parts of the race that it's so easy to endure in. And I was thinking about, being sports day at school, and you've got the egg and the spoon and you only have to go 6 steps. Like that, I can endure that race. But to endure a marathon, you have to be insane. Or sporty, one or the other, I don't know. But to endure a marathon, that takes training, and that takes more than just a little bit of willingness. That takes real digging deep. Last Friday evening, I was in Miami Airport, and I had to run to make my connecting flight. And I had to endure, because I don't run. And I had this goal in front of me that was really propelling me forward. If I miss that flight, I won't get to England on Saturday. I'm speaking on Sunday. Anyway, I had to endure. We have to endure, to keep going, to digging deep. So we could end it there, and that would be lovely. But actually, there's a question, and that question is how? How do we endure? And this is why, one of the reasons I love the Bible, is that it tells us in verse 3 that we endure by keeping our eyes on Jesus. That when Jesus, he came to the earth, he walked the earth, and he endured more than we ever will or ever could or could even imagine. And he did that out of love for you and for me. And he lived the life that when we're going through struggles or good times, we look to and we're encouraged to keep going. We have his example or his blueprint, his model of how to live the very best life we possibly could. of living that life in all of its fullness, of loving God, of loving one another, and also of loving ourselves. Jesus says, love one another as you love yourself. We're supposed to love ourselves. It's great. Learn how to love yourself and love other people too. By looking to Jesus, by fixing our vision on him. So I'm incredibly thankful for the race that I'm running, waddling along most of the time. I'm incredibly thankful for the opportunities that I've had, for the many lives that Go Mad is blessed enough to be able to encourage and to impact, for the people that I've been able to meet along the way. Some of the most humble, incredible leaders in the whole wide world live in the Dominican Republic, in these little villages, in wooden houses, and they really embody loving one another. They're such an example and an encouragement of what faith in practice looks like. It's a privilege that we can help people with these opportunities and that we can help them with healthcare and all the other things that we get to do and be a part of. And as we endure in that walk and see the successes and look to Jesus for our example, it just keeps on encouraging us more and more and more to keep going. But the thing is, we all have a race, don't we? We all have things that challenge us and that slow us down and trip us up, things that get in our way. Do you remember doing hurdles at school? That was horrendous. I remember doing hurdles. I jumped over one, I knocked all the rest down, and I ran around the last one. But I kept going. I endured. I tried. But what is the race that you're in today? What are the circumstances that are in front of you? Maybe this afternoon, maybe for the rest of the week, or your general race in life. What is it that you're struggling with? Because we are all struggling with something. We really are. And my encouragement is to look through those heroes of the faith in Hebrews chapter 11. Some of them, if you don't know their stories, look them up. Learn from them. What can you learn for your own life about the people in Hebrews chapter 11? And more importantly, fix your eyes on Jesus. Focus your sights on him. How would Jesus, I know it's the wristband, but how would Jesus handle the situation that you're struggling with? What would Jesus do? What does love look like in those circumstances that you're struggling with? There is an answer. As you endure in your race, where are you looking? Where am I looking? Where are we all looking? Fix your eyes on Jesus. So I've been in the Dominican for a generation now. It's crazy. 15 years, a whole generation of people that I've had the privilege of seeing impacted by the services that we're providing. Taking people from these dirt floor tin shacks to brick homes, that was exciting. The physical transformation of the community. But now 15 years in, we're seeing the economic change begin. We're seeing the university students. It's absolutely exciting to be a part of. Back in 2010, I asked the children, what do you want to do when you finish school? And in 2010, all of the boys said construction work, because that's what all their dads did. And all of the girls said they wanted to be a mum, which is great, because that's what all their mums did, funnily enough. And those are great ambitions. Those are lovely ambitions. But that was the ambition for the whole community, was to do the same as their parents had done. Well, today when you ask the children the same question, the answers that you get are just, well, some of them are very funny, but the answers are amazing. They'll say they want to be a pilot, baseball player, doctor, lawyer, nurse, engineer, lots of engineers. They come up with every job under the sun, and that's because it's a possibility, and you can't dream about something you haven't heard about. So having these opportunities is changing mindsets, and it's changing lives. There was one little boy, his name is Jose, and Jose said that he wanted to be the church. I thought, that's brilliant, because we are the church, you've already succeeded. And he said, no, I want to be the church. And he pointed over at the church. I'm like, do you mean you want to be a pastor? He's like, no, I want to be the church. And at that point, I thought, Jose needed a bit longer in school. Nice try, Jose, bless him, maybe one day. But as we each continue in the race that we're in, I just want to leave you with a final encouragement to endure and to celebrate the good times too. It's a spiritual discipline to celebrate. So whilst you're enduring, Take those moments and celebrate well as we take our faith out of these doors, as we celebrate it here together on a Sunday, and then take it out into the community that we're in, as we love our neighbor, as we love ourselves and love God. That's what transforms this world, the love of God in action through you and I. God bless you all.